I need to register in there.
Hmm?
I need to register in there. Yeah.
To
Okay.
get the Zoom link, yeah.
Probably a good idea.
And I think we had about 7 people say they're coming online,
Okay, cool.
and about 2 in person.
Okay.
Yeah, I know one of them is. Tisha.
We're all at the caviar. We were on something. Very funny.
Who else showed up? Yeah. Oh, fun. That's about usually what we get is about that much. I think the only one that we get an insane amount for is the, what is it called? Lancey's. That one, for some reason, is, you get wild.
So,
Absolutely wild.
why that's.
I know, right? Yeah, it's just another thing. It's just another thing.
Yeah.
So you guys had so much fun with Mitch last night that you decided to do it
We
again
came
today.
for a repeat performance. So however, there's no drinks.
So- The first thing I ever learned about Mitch was the fact that he parties on tables. Did he party on a table last night? No?
Still daylight outside.
To this day, Charles still tells that story every single time we're talking about getting drinks. Every single time he's like, no.
Oh, in the moment.
Yeah, he's like, the first family reunion I ever went to, Mitch danced on a table, and I'm just like, all right.
So if I have the, so I have intro with coaching and her, and there's this as well.
Well, whatever you gotta do. This will be recorded, so.
I think-
nice on that.
Huh?
It's okay.
Yeah. That's what I have on my calendar. I'm gonna get in trouble with somebody who's last name Voorhees, Jason.
I won't be, I won't chase
I
that.
gotta get my first 30 days done. So,
When I first saw, Chris and Kane and seeing October came around, I was just, I didn't think like, now that's something that happened.
oh, it has been Jason.
Yeah, that's right. Was Jesse 40? Like, was there 400? Okay, 400. Like, we didn't say 400. But she actually looks it up after he left and was like, oh, wow. Oh, it's double. It's actually double.
What's Fairway? Fairway,
Yeah.
do you have Fairway Mortgage?
I guess.
What about it?
And they got in trouble, they gotta pay.
Yeah, I got a $10 million fine and stuff this morning.
Yeah, for real money.
I don't know what it was, I didn't read the article yet.
For what? For
Red
real
money?
money. It's on Birmingham.
I don't know, you know what that means?
Yeah.
It's crazy, I don't know those things.
Yeah,
Like, it's so prevalent that it's known,
yeah.
so.
I wouldn't even know, like, it's just bizarre to me that happens.
It's staying, yeah, it happens, that
Yeah.
happened 50, should never. Really, really, it starts. But. Yeah. Yes. It's silly,
Unnecessary.
unacceptable practice, and I'm glad that these companies get nailed. For that.
I'm not surprised there is, I don't know.
You right?
I said, I'm not surprised that it was in that.
And I grew up in LA, and there's certain areas of the red line, but
Yeah.
a long time ago. They got nailed for it, all the big banks at that time.
And you still going, it's crazy.
Nothing I need.
I'm not saying, but I'm not actually saying people are so.
There's a roll of toilet paper up here, I'm not sure what that's for. It's a
Okay,
sneeze.
I'll say yes. Hey, take it.
It's kind of funny.
Why not? You guys usually get allergies pretty bad or no?
I used to have really bad allergies when I first moved here. I went to acupuncturist,
Oh, nice.
and he threw acupuncture and herbs, because he was also, it's massive all of herbs. In particular herbs, got rid of my allergies. And I've had for my entire life. Pardon?
It actually works,
It was amazing, yes.
Did it hurt?
I love acupuncture, no, it's very comforting. Yeah, but not everybody likes it.
I'd love to try it, I've never done it.
Yeah, it was like jam a needle, it was like these teeny little needles, and if I go like that, I mean, it's very phenomenal what penetration of the needle is. But when I go there, I just fall asleep, it's just so relaxing. If I have like a sore muscle, or if I pull the muscle or something, I'll do something, I'll work on that right now. Yes, and they do these, like an electronic. So the needles are in, there's these wires on the needles, and it's got a little machine that puts electricity through there to help relax the muscle. It's usually pretty tense and tight, so the stimulation is like, you get the muscle like, down, and then like 30 seconds later, it's totally just release itself, and it's very good for you. So.
Pretty good, like, shoulders.
Yeah, shoulder, neck, and whatever, hands, you know, a lot of hand issues, trigger finger, you know, all whatever it is. But then I said, can you help me with my allergies? Like, I can try, I can't promise you, it does help some people, not others. And after about 2 seasons of taking this, I switched with kind of yuck. I probably dirt water every day, because it was brown, fresh up herbs. Because I was doing an adult. I didn't even realize they were away, but they were gone, because I was no longer sneezing, and the whole process of an allergy attack. I ran outside a lot, it was springtime, it's all seasonal allergies, but it completely. Like, I sent them 3 other buddies, who got rid of their allergies too. So with that said, I'm a true believer that you can, just have, I think, your body just responds.
Sounds better than going to the store, taking medicine.
You know, all the Claritin and all, and I was taking that stuff and it dries you out and just you get like wired and it just wasn't, I just wanted to try something different. He was part of the network group I was in, he was actually in the BNI group.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and he's Irish, but he trained in Taiwan for many years, and then he came back and he has his own practice up in Boulder. And Andrew Maloney. That's Irish.
I would like to try it.
Yeah, it's cool, if you get the right person you resonate with and you kind of feel trusting. You can just totally let everything go and just chill. And then try it, and I go, every now and then, he'll hit a point, he'll go. we're gonna go here because I feel like you're off balance or whatever here, and you'll put it in and I go. But then it dissipates, goes away pretty quick, and then that's nice. What's the term, you give into something, you,
Submit,
what is it? Submit, what was another name to say? So, yeah, you just kind of let it all go and just relax.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it's cool, so I'm a true believer, and my wife, she goes all the time. There's
I
that.
know, Amanda goes too.
Does she? Oh, yeah, that's right, she's got some stuff she deals with.
She goes
Physically.
because of the North Office, there's
Yeah.
an acupuncturist on the
Oh,
hall.
nice, okay, I have seen that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
I don't know what she goes for, but.
Yeah. She has, there's something she might talk about, I can't remember. There's something else. Anyway, find the right person's working. So.
Okay.
All right. Do one more minute, we'll get on.
So many apples. That makes sense. Then we can be cool.
Right, so I feel Is it ready? We'll get started.
That's fun.
Cool. Hey Lee, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Excellent, thank you. Good morning, how are you?
Doing good.
Good. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I wish I could have made that happy hour, but I had things going on, so.
I understand, we'll do it again. We had a nice time. It was a pretty, I've never been to that restaurant, so it was really fun.
Did it go pretty good?
Yeah, it was fun, you always go and you learn about people and you learn their stories and you talk about things outside of work and. It's always fun to walk away with, knowing a little bit more about everyone we work with on a daily basis and. It always reminds me we're all human beings and we love to do things totally outside of real estate. And we have a life outside of real estate, so hopefully you can join us next time.
Yeah, definitely. I'll try to make it for sure.
Okay, yeah, we'll do more, they're fun. So, great. All right, well, good morning, I'm gonna try and get through this within a half hour, it's a lot of good information. We did this training, and you were here, John, so I'm saying this in case you don't wanna hang out. Yeah, we did that 1 hour CE class.
Oh, that's right.
Changes, so
Listen in.
you can listen in for sure, yeah, just wanted to let you know.
Okay.
Yeah. This is a condensed version of it without CE, yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, okay,
Cool.
you got it. So about a month ago or 6 weeks ago, there was a lot of talk and concern about how the heck are we going to deal with these changes with the NAR changes about buyer's agency and how's a buyer or seller gonna deal with who's gonna pay for that agency compensation. And so a lot of it came down to what impact would that have on a mortgage if in fact the buyer ended up having to pay it out of their pocket, which then meant they had less money to use for down payment or buying a house. So we came up with with a presentation around that and how we put out there and saying, here's some really good ideas that may not be thought about at the time if it comes up. I've had three contracts where the buyer did end up paying some form of the compensation for their realtor, of which it didn't have any impact on their ability to happen to have the money. We're gonna talk about looking at ways that if they didn't have the extra money, how can we put that into either the price of the home and the mortgage or a combination of both, so that $25,000 buyer compensation, buyer agency compensation really ends up impacting the buyer by about $8,000. And I'll show you how that works. So we'll talk through that, and then if you have any questions along the way, let me know. There's gonna be a lot of data, I'll send you the slideshow, so you'll have a hard copy of it as well. Then we'll go from there. So these are just abbreviations about what's in the actual presentation, because our industry, like real estate, loves to have initials for everything. The ones that are probably most appropriate that we're gonna see is down payment, buyer agency, the VA. Loan to value is really important. That's a loan to value means if you're buying a house for $1 million and you're putting 20% down, that means the other 80% is the loan to value of that $1 million property. And you probably learned some of this class or teaching for your test, but that's what loan to value stands for. CLTV stands for combined loan to value. So if someone has two mortgages at the same time, a first mortgage and a second mortgage, we add those two dollar amounts of the loan together and compare it to the price or the value of the property. That's called combined loan to value. And then the rest we'll go through as we get there. The other one that's important is the IPC, which is the interest party contributions, but it should be interested party contributions. I'll change that. All right, couple quick questions you got to mind going into this direction. What loan type allows seller concessions to pay off buyer's debt to qualify? So if I'm a buyer and I have a credit card or a car payment that doesn't allow me to qualify to buy your house as the seller, but if I get money to pay off that debt, what loan allows you to do that?
The interest of party,
Say it.
the interest of party,
Well, that would be an interested party is anyone involved in a real estate transaction. But I'm talking, my question is what kind of mortgage will allow that debt to be paid off?
reverse mortgage.
It would end up being a first mortgage, but which party can pay it off? And it's really more the loan type. So I'll answer. So VA mortgages and VA home loans allows the seller to actually pay down the debt for the buyer.
Okay.
And I gave you an example a long time ago, and that is, we had a buyer who had $10,000 going on an alimony payment to his ex-wife. He had a $700 a month payment. He didn't qualify for that $700 a month payment. The seller gave him $10,000 to then pay off the alimony balance, and that $700 a month payment went away. And now he qualified to buy a house.
Yeah.
That's an example of that. All right, we'll come back to these at the end. We don't want to get through that more important part. So how can the buyer agency success fee be financed into the loan? So success fee is your buyer agency, so the commission, we don't call it compensation. So it can be paid by the buyer, but there's very specific loans that it can be paid for by. It can be financed into the loan up to the maximum, what that loan to value. And that loan to value is very important because there's always a minimum down payment for certain loan types. That if we're trying to finance more into the loan, it now won't work because you've exceeded the loan to value, meaning you have to at least put 3% down or 5% down, depending on the loan type. We can include it in the purchase price, which is what we often do now anyway. And then it can be included in the seller concession. If the seller concession is allowed above the interested party contribution, the maximum specifically to pay buyer agency compensation, but again, we have to discuss that and make sure it's put in that loan properly so we don't exceed certain requirements. And also we have to separate that out on the closing disclosure. Has anyone had a closing yet? I don't have. We're gonna go through a closing disclosure quickly. I'll show you where you'll see that. But we do have to show that who's paying for what at the very end as well, to make sure it's meeting the criteria guidelines for the loan payment. Okay, so this is a great document. I've sent this out to the office before, but I'm gonna go through it pretty quickly, but it's really crucial. So in a conventional loan, two different options. There's a maximum that a seller is allowed to contribute towards helping the buyer get into buying their home from the financing standpoint. And what it can be allowed for. They were just going through the percentages. So if they're doing a conventional loan, these are all just kind of brackets, so less than 10%, The seller can give 3% of the purchase price to help the seller, of the buyer with closing costs and prepaid expenses. If they're putting more than 10% up to 24.99%, they can pay up to 6%. And if they're putting more than 25% down, then they can pay up to 9%. I've never had a 9% contribution from the seller. I have had 6% contributions. Those have been used for certain buy down programs that we offer. You ever heard of a temporary buy down loan? A 2-1 buy down, a 3-2-1 buy down?
Okay, yeah.
Those are called temporary buy downs. Those are very expensive depending on which one you use. The seller can pay for all of that in order to help reduce the monthly payment and the rate for the buyer. If it's an investment purchase, so if they're buying it as a rental property, that allows for a less or smaller amount at the seller contribution, and that's gonna be 2% of the purchase price. Keep in mind, these are at the price of the property, not the loan amount. And a lot of people get confused on that because you can get more out of the purchase price, because the price is higher than the loan amount. So you can actually ask for more dollars from the seller if they're willing to do that. Just a caveat on investment loans. A buyer who's buying a home as a rental property cannot get gift funds. And you can do it on every other loan, but an investment purchase property.
Okay.
So good to know, because a lot of people are, oh, my dad's gonna help me buy a rental property and give me money to use money on the loan with me. That's a gift, and they don't accept gift funds for investment properties. It gets missed a lot by loan officers.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's right. Now, we can strategize on how to get a gift, put it in the buyer's bank account, let it sit there for 2 months. Then they turn around and go buy a house. There's no gift anymore because we have 2 bank statements that don't show a large deposit.
Okay.
At that point, you're no longer giving gifts because the money's been seasoned, as we call it. FHA will allow a seller to pay 6%, again, towards these items, closing costs, prepays, and points. VA, you can go up to 4% for closing costs. That's the one that you can pay, you do debt payoff, like we talked about at the very beginning. And the seller can also pay discount points to help buy down or reduce the interest rate. So it's a lot more than just the 4%, and it could be paying off debt, it could be, like I mentioned, that alimony payment, a lot of different things. People have open collection accounts, sometimes those have to get paid off. We can use sellers' money to do that to help them. If you have a credit card, I mean, it's crazy what they allow. They really want to help veterans be able to buy a house, and that's what we're seeing, is much more flexibility with those types of loans. And then USDA, so USDA is basically seen as almost like a conventional loan. That's the United States Department of Agriculture. So there are properties in certain locations, oftentimes rural, where you can do a loan where there's no down payment required at all. So a little more restricted in how much of their income they can use to qualify, and also how much income they can earn given certain areas. There's income limitations. However, it's an amazing loan when it works. Great rates, lower rates than typical 30-year Fannie Mae fixed rates, conventional rates, and no down payments required. Seller can get up to 6% an hour. So these are all really important.
I will say where you get hung up is, sometimes we'll have agents call and say, hey, they need a whole new septic system, we need to give you a $40,000 credit. Well,
Can't do it.
I don't have enough closing costs to put that money, right? It's not money that can just go towards that septic.
Right.
In all cases, right? None of our answers are absolute. There are ways that we can function that, but sometimes I've seen where they'll just send over to Mint, says seller credit $40,000. It's like, wait a minute, you can't do that. So you need to know these limitations, and also that money can really, as a seller concession, only go towards closing costs, prepaid items, or rate right now.
Right. So in that example, they would have to replace the septic before you can close. You can't just give the money, typically you can't put it into a, you're looking at getting it escrow.
Yeah, that's where I caught myself.
Okay.
Well, you can't.
You can't get it, so there's a whole nother layer.
Done it, but that way.
Yeah, so there's different ways to handle certain repair items. It has to be approved by the lender because we're the one outstanding, having the loan outstanding. And we have to make sure we're meeting the guidelines for that loan type. So everything is case by case. That's the beauty of real estate, is there's so many different ways to do certain things. And there's some flexibilities and there's some not, it just depends on what those repair items are. Dave, we're not gonna talk about that, but we can talk about that another time. All right. So what kind of loans will allow you to go all the way up to 100% loan to value? These are important because again, it talks about what flexibility do we have with using seller concessions to help offset certain things. Or building them into the loan. So VA, USDA, we do have an FHA loan that's 100%. A traditional FHA loan is putting 3.5% down. A conventional loan, they have to put at least 3% down. Down payment assistance programs will allow for interested party contributions or using that money to help pay for some of the compensation for you guys. Jumbo loans up to 90%. We have our own proprietary loan program in-house called an all-in-one loan. I'm not gonna go into the details of it, but it is a first mortgage home equity line of credit. And it is a wonderfully tailored loan for people who have a lot of extra cash flow each month that they want to use to pay their loan down quicker and save a ton of interest and still have access to the equity in the home. It is a beautifully wonderful loan that's unique to our company. We created it many, many years ago. And so we can do it with that. And then there's what are called non-QM loans. Those are loans that are like 12-month bank statement loans or using just someone's 1098 document to document income. So it's loans that don't meet the traditional loan qualifications. These are other loan types called non-QM. And not QM stands for qualified mortgage. So it's a non-qualified mortgage. The seller concession can be used to pay the buyer agency, and this is all about you guys and your comp plan, if the buyer is paying, buyer agency compensation in cash from you guys, from the buyer, out of their pocket, the seller concession can be used to buy out mortgage insurance, buy down the rate and or lower closing costs to keep financing affordable. These are just strategies we're using when the buyer says, I gotta pay you your compensation because the seller won't pay for it. But there goes my cash and I was gonna use for something else. But then we take what we get from the seller to then use to do other things like buy down the rate, pay off mortgage insurance, et cetera, depending what the need is for that client. So you can still buy the home. The goal is to have strategies around still allowing them to afford to buy a house. And that's why we put this together. So we can finance buyer agency of 2% to a 97% loan to value. One buyer must be a first-time home buyer. So in order to actually do a 97% loan or 3% down on a conventional loan, you must be a first-time home buyer. Otherwise, you have to put 5% down. So there's a big distinction there. When can you do one of these strategies? So these are just some examples in how we can adjust the loan amounts, and that's what this was all about. So if the original price, well, the price was $790,300, and the down payment was going to be 5%, we could convert that and put it, instead of putting 5% down, they put 3% down, again, assuming they're a first-time home buyer. And we have to raise the loan amount because we have to cover some of that, like your buyer agency compensation, and we have to ask the seller to pick up $6,530. All that to be said, the goal is to keep the monthly payment almost exactly like it was if they put 5% down. That's we're just not to worry how we got there, well, we can get there. And we're just kind of manipulating the numbers to where we'll put some here, we'll put some here. Part is raising the loan amount, so they're borrowing a little bit more money, but we're buying the rate down to keep their payment where they want it to be. In that, everything is about payment for the most part. Right? For most people, it's not always, but for most people. The solution number 2, same thing, smaller down payment. We just do a smaller seller concession again by raising the price, and everything would be similar to the buyer for the payment, which again, payment is everything. And then this would be paying a 2% commission to you guys in this scenario. So if you said, well, I got to give up a little to make this transaction work because the buyer doesn't have enough money, the seller's not willing to pay it. Can you make it work? Yeah, everybody's going to be doing a little bit of balancing back there to make sure that it can work for the buyer. You got to decide if you're going to do that as well at the very beginning. Our job is just to come up with solutions for it. It is a financing option that we can help with. Okay. A lot of other details to it. The goal of this really is to say there's ways, again, solutions and how to make it so that new buyer can still buy the property. Any questions on that?
No.
Yeah, you don't have to know how to do it, but it's good to know it can be done
Yeah.
on the back end, but there's a lot of, as my partner calls it, a lot of magic takes place behind the scenes. And then we make it so that as long as the numbers work for the buyer, then we can make that happen. Another scenario would be, this is where someone's putting a larger down payment Again, we're gonna take money from the down payment, and basically all these adjustments are, oftentimes we raise the price or we're raising the loan. We're taking some of the cash from the buyer that would have been used for the down payment, giving it to pay your compensation, and then using funds from the seller to then either buy down the rate or pay out what's called mortgage insurance, or keep that rate low enough to where even though the buyer has to pay mortgage insurance, the payment comes out to be almost identical to what they expected at the very beginning, even though that commission is not being paid for you guys through the buyer, their compensation. So again, just a lot of number crunching and different ways of manipulating the numbers to make it work. But the goal of these examples is it can work, and it can keep those payments to a level where the buyer is crucial. I mean, in this example, I won't go through all the gyrations, how we got there, but the payment was off literally by $1.
Yeah.
And we raised the price, raised the loan amount, et cetera. So it can be done. That's the beauty of numbers and the beauty of our industry, where we have all these different options that we can use to help keep things in a way that allows it to move forward. All right, closing disclosure. You may have seen this in your class study for taking the test. So closing disclosure means you're getting to go to the closing. So it's a really good document to know to have when you get it. The closing disclosure is a cumulative accounting of all the numbers that are involved in that real estate transaction. So it's the price, it's the loan amount, it's the fees from all the different companies involved in the transaction. It shows how much money the buyer needs to bring to closing. It shows monthly payments, which got blocked off here for a minute because that's not the point of this document today. But it is the roadmap to the final numbers for a buyer. It's something we share, we discuss with the client in the very beginning. It's not called a closing disclosure in the very beginning, it's called a loan estimate, which is identical in many ways as far as this information here. But it gives them an idea of how much money they need to bring to closing and who they're paying along the way in that real estate transaction. And there's a lot. I mean, look at all these numbers. You got title insurance, title closing fee, tax certificate, recording deed, recording, et cetera, loan fees, doing the loan, appraisal if you need it, et cetera. So this was really to illustrate how the numbers get placed on the closing disclosure to make sure it's meeting the criteria that the loan requires from a standpoint of a seller giving money to help participate, and then where do we end up with the loan amount, et cetera. And so for the funds, for the commissions, et cetera, that are needing to be paid for, like in this example, the client was buying an $826,000 home. They were putting initially 20% down, but the numbers got adjusted to where instead of having to come up with, where's our price? It would be $83,000, actually, they were putting 10% down, $83,000 plus all the closing costs. But we're able to manipulate the numbers to where they're actually putting 8% down, but then all the closing costs got covered, but we pushed the commission, or buyer commission over to the seller side instead, and we're able to adjust all the numbers so that the seller still paid for it, but it didn't cost them as much money as they had thought it was going to cost with all the way you can move the numbers around. So again, I'm happy to go one-on-one with you guys. I go, that was a lot of information. I understand all of it. I'm happy to do that because there's a lot of generation of the numbers, but it's just nice to see how that's going to look like, what that's going to look like. Just another example of something very similar, adjusting numbers in a little bit different way. We showed points in this one. The other one had no points to buy the rate down to the slower rate, which allowed the payment to stay at the level that the buyer said needed to stay at. Okay, other solutions for helping buyers pay agent commission and compensation. We can do down payment assistance programs. They will allow that to be used towards your buyer agency compensation. They can pull funds out of a retirement account. So a lot of people are like, I don't want to withdraw my 401k funds because I'm saving that for retirement. They can do a loan. They can take it out and pay that loan back. They can do a withdrawal, but again, if it's a first time home and it's a primary residence, there's actually no taxability, no penalty, depending how much. They can get gift funds, and gift funds can be in the form of monies from, depending on the loan type, a family member, or as for conventional loans. And then for FHA and VA loans, they tend to allow you to be a little bit more loose in that relationship. So it could be no, the other way around, right? Family is allowing like your godmother or godfather is allowable, FHA must be a family, yeah, must be really truly family. Aunt, uncle, cousin, grandparent, parent, brother, sister, etc.
How much does it have to be considered, how much money do you have to get to be considered a gift?
Anything, well, we don't really question a $500 deposit typically, but if somebody's getting $5,000, for example, and they don't typically have that kind of income coming from a job.
Yeah,
So any non-employment related deposit as a large scale will be questioned, where did that money come from?
okay,
So if that's a gift, then we do a gift letter. And we have certain ways we have to document money came from that donor for the gift, depending on the loan type. But first of all, there's no limit to how much they can gift. And there's really no minimum. It's more about how do we document it at the time it's being given. To answer your question.
Yeah.
I had someone right now getting $107,000 gift from their mom.
wow, that's a big gift.
It's a big gift. I think part of it was like the inheritance that they got. They kind of went from grandparent to daughter, who was the mother. The mother is now giving it to the child to go buy a house.
Wow.
So there's all these different ways to address that. In a gifting scenario, just always like to bring this up when a question comes up. There's these annual gifts that everybody knows about. You can get $16,000 a year. It's not taxable to the donor who's giving the money. So the person who gets taxed when there's a gift is the person giving the money, not the person who receives the money. We always think it's the person who receives it because it's considered income. It's not, it's the donor. So there's two gift taxes. One is the annual one you could do with no taxability whatsoever. You would file that if you decide to file it.
And
The other is
that one like 25,000 or something?
There's a lifetime gift tax,
Okay,
and it's currently $12.4 million per person. If you're married, it's $24.8 million. Throughout your entire life, you can do that without any taxable event currently in our current tax laws. So a lot of people don't have that kind of money, so don't even know that exists. And all of a sudden, grandpa all of a sudden says to grandchildren, want to buy a house, I'm gonna give you $50,000, but I don't want to show it as a gift because it's more than the $16,000 a year. I don't want to pay taxes on it. I don't want to sign a gift letter. That's what we deal with a lot. And so we say, by the way, you should talk to your accountant or CPA. There's this lifetime, they call it the debt tax, really, what we call it, tax. The gifting tax, it's a life, so you can tuck it under that one, and that can accumulate to $12 million. Again, most people don't know about that. That's what we go to, when it's more than the minimum amount of people giving.
okay.
Start to bring that up. And then we have a program called Home Funded. Home Funded is a down payment assistance crowdfunding program that allows people to give you as a buyer funds to help you buy a property without having to deal with gift letters. And the short version is, a lot of people who are getting married, instead of registering for items, they say, I really want to actually have you donate money to us to help us buy a house. We have a whole program that's set up, totally all electronic. There's portals that you create for yourselves, and we have, that our borrowers have. Dale is very famous for doing a lot of these. And
Famous.
a lot of, our organization is famous for doing a lot of them. And they, it just makes it easy to get in funds so they can go buy a home with all this extra cash instead of buying a toaster. Give me the $100 and we put this down here for a house. The beauty of this program is our company will match up to $2,000 for the buyer to help them with additional money for buying a home. And then there's other resources that we've created to help get even additional funds up to $4,500, right? For the home plan.
I think it's another 2,500 on top of the two.
Right, so total of 40,
Yeah.
yeah, so.
Yeah.
So another grant of $2,500 that depending on the client's ability to qualify for that extra money. They get a lot of money in support of buying a home. You might only need 3% or 3.5% to buy a place. You can get that with these contributions. So, we'll present that at another time, because it's a program itself. So this is at Home Funded. I don't want to go into too much detail, but parents can do it, grandparents, really family members, aunts, uncles, church employer, anyone can do it. So some random person is like, hey, I saw your Instagram post on, my husband, I want to buy a house, or my partner, I want to go buy a house, and we're gonna use this great program, and someone goes, I wanna give those guys $25, they can do it, but they don't have to have any relationship to you whatsoever, you could never know who they are. So that's possible. Friends, teammates, coworkers, wedding guests, it's a very, popular one. And then a donor can give up to $5,000 through this
Okay.
particular program as well. No campaign, there's no maximum, no commissions or hidden fees, so like in a true GoFundMe account, that company takes money out of the money that comes in, that's their profitability and expense, there's zero of that, this is just 100% goes to the client, you know, they buy a house. No time limit, so they go, hey, we just got engaged, you wanna buy a house in a year, that account can sit there for a year, 2 years, 3 years, it can build up. It can be somebody who's going to college and they're like, hey, instead of giving me college gifts, give me money, I want to go buy a house when I'm done with school. And my birthdays, throw the money in there, and all those Christmas gifts, Hanukkah gifts, whatever gifts that people get. All that can be donated into this portal. It's a checking account in the bottom of this name, is all it is. That money then is designated to help them buy a house when they're ready. Then you would be their sponsor of the program, and we would be the lender of the sponsor part of the program. And it's a huge marketing campaign that's wonderfully designed by our company. And
That's really cool.
yeah, and we'll try to do another presentation on it.
Yeah.
So we won't get too much into that, but all of this is on here because it's another way to have funds to help buy a home and or cover buyer's agency compensation. So this is just a little bit more about that program. So this is the big thing that took place. You guys have probably seen it enough times, but depending on where you put your compensation will determine how that whole contract's gonna be negotiated. The goal is to keep everything in 29.1 if you can. Let the sellers come back and say, we're not paying you 2.8, we'll pay you 2.5. Great, we'll go 2.5 if that's what you agree to do, but it simplifies it from the standpoint of the mortgage. Because we don't want your compensation to then be commingled with an actual seller concession to help the borrower in that same line. We want it to, those to be separated. It's just tracked a lot easier. So in seller concession, which is the line in your contract, this is where you would have the buyer or the seller say, okay, I'm willing to give the buyer $7,000 to help with closing costs and buying down the rate or what have you. That's the area you want it to go on the contract. How will the appraiser know if the commission is included? How will the appraiser know if commission was included in the past sold properties, and can lenders and realtors communicate with the appraiser during the appraisal process? No, can't talk, I mean, you can have a conversation, if you're the listing agent, that appraiser's gonna call you to schedule a time to come out. You can have dialogue with them, and they'll talk to you, but you can't say, you need to know if it's value of $450,000, but we're gonna have a problem, right? You can't say that. You can't talk value. But you can say, I'm gonna have comparables there for you, there's a recent sale, it's supposed to close in a week, you're coming out a day before the closing. Can you wait to come out maybe the next day so we can use that comp? That conversation can take place for sure. Nothing so far has been impacted by the appraisals, given the buyer agency cost for the value of the home. So put all that, forget about all these new changes, nothing is really changed.
Okay.
The value of the property is still the value of the property, regardless of whether there's buyer compensation built into the price or removed from the price. If the value's there, the value's there, the appraisers are telling us they are not looking at other sales that did or did not have compensation built into that price. So there's no way to distinguish that, because there's no line items that they're pulling that number out. So far, everything has been, I haven't had any issues on appraisals due to that.
No.
And we kept thinking there was gonna be this huge issue. And the appraisers kept saying, we don't know, and then finally, it's not gonna be any different, so don't worry about it. So at the moment, we're not worrying about it, and we haven't seen anything coming low relative to a compensation item of commissions. So this is those answers, so when you get this slideshow, when it comes to you, these are the answers to those first questions up there on the trivia questions. It's just more to get things going. And there's a lot of different considerations. Every scenario is going to be different. There's tons of different options that we know that we will help you navigate to the extent that you need to know, so that the buyer has a good understanding that they can still buy this home. You can still earn your compensation, even if the seller says, I'm not paying it. even though I'm not gonna pay it in this transaction, and you have to go all to the buyer. There are ways that we can adjust the numbers to make it so that the buyer's payment remains the same or very similar. You have to adjust some numbers, the reality is there's still a $20,000 compensation out there. How do you take that $20,000 and move those numbers around, so you still get your commissions and compensation for that transaction? That's the point of this whole presentation is, we know how to do that, as long as everything makes sense for the buyer. And that's the goal, and again, I could go on and on for 2 hours, but we won't. So any questions that come up off the top of your head? Because I know it was a lot in a short amount of time, but at least it gives you an idea that, hey, there's a solution, right? And we should talk to Mitch or Gail or whomever to figure out the solution, because my client loves this house. The sellers already said they will not pay our compensation. What do? We want to still get paid for doing our work, but how can we adjust these numbers accordingly? That's where you can step in and really help out that. Any questions, Orlando or Nicole or Lee?
Yeah, I had a question. I have a few buyers that need to get pre-approved and everything. Should I just send you their contact information, or how should I
Yes.
do that?
Yeah, so you could, you have our email, correct? My email?
Yeah, I do have your email.
Okay, so either you can email me and or Dale their information and we will contact them. Or you can do a joint introductory email to us and them, to say, hey, here's our lender, we'd love to have you talk to, they're gonna go through some information. And then what we do is we reach out to your client in the form of an email to schedule a time to talk. But then we also send them the questions that we're gonna review together, so that they know exactly what we're gonna talk about in that meeting. So there's no kind of anxiety about, I have no idea what these guys wanna talk to me about, I don't know if I wanna talk to them. We give the questions in advance so they don't feel pressured or anxious about that. So usually that intro email is the best, but however you think the client will respond best, like a text or a call or an email, just let us know, we'll do it.
Sounds good. Thank you. Appreciate your information.
Yeah, you got it. And then we'll get back to you after we've connected with them, or if we just left a message, we'll say, hey, we left a message, we'll let you know when we connect.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Nicole or Orland, any questions from you?
No, I'm fine.
I
Thank
think
you.
I'm okay as well. Thank you.
You're welcome. I know it's a lot of information, so if you do have kind of more detailed questions or specific questions, let us know. We're happy to answer those for you.
Thank you so much.
And we'll send out an email also with this information. Anybody else?
No, I don't think so.
No, okay. We have lunch together today? And dinner and drinks. All right, guys, thanks for joining. Have a good day, and we're here to help you out any way we can.
Thanks, Mitch.
Take it easy. Bye.
Sure.
Monetary, you know.